Welcome to the Talent War podcast. And today, I've had this really good run of having great guests. And I get to have Diana Spencer on. And I can't wait because you're going to talk about a favorite topic of mine. In the Talent War group, and one of the things when we wrote the book, we talked about the attributes of people. And that the attributes, the character, were far more important than the experience that people brought to the table. Not that experience doesn't matter. We never say that. But we know it's the attributes of a person that make a big difference. And Mike and I in our book boiled it down to 9. And there was one that was amazing that people don't interview for and don't look for, and that was integrity. And so when I learned that you are giving out for the first time an award, which I want you to tell everybody about, it's about the ethics of being a great leader. So I'd like you to just introduce yourself. I'd love for you to tell us about the fund. And then what was the genesis of this idea, the Ethical Leadership Award? I'm fascinated by it.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you, George. First of all, it's just so good to be here with you. I really am honored to have the invitation.
Oh, thanks.
So you're doing great work. So the Ethical Leader of the Year Award is really an award that showcases, first of all, the need for ethical leadership today, right? So there's always been scandals. There's always been loss of jobs and 401ks throughout the years. You can name a number of them right off the bat. And mostly it's affected the environment, employees, but what we're seeing in the last 2 years is that people are so hungry for ethical leaders. And you see that through the lens of equity. You see it through DEI, ESG, all of these things that have just really come to the fore for us. And we just thought, you know what, we really need to focus on the positive, because we know there are people out there who are extremely ethical leaders. And let's try to showcase and build examples and have people serve as role models for this. And that was really the impetus of this. Plus the deep desire of the McGowan Fund to elevate the national conversation just on the need of ethical leadership.
And sometimes, so Mike and I are very, very brash when it comes to leaders. We are the hardest judge of leaders. We're the hardest judges of ourselves when it comes to leadership. And we talk about ethical leaders and unethical leaders. But there's a part of me that wonders, are you truly a leader if you don't have a solid foundation of ethics? Are you really living, breathing, and defining the term leader if you're not ethical? Maybe you're just a manager. Maybe you're just a boss. Maybe you're a person with the title. I couldn't agree with you more. But when I look at people, I'm like, if you're missing the ethics and the integrity, I'm not so keen on following you or really driving hard to accomplish the mission that you've given. So so how did you come up with the criteria for this award? Now, you haven't announced it yet, correct?
We announced it this morning.
You did? Okay.
We did. We presented it, and I believe the press release is going live any minute.
Great. So how did you come up with the criteria? One of the things when Mike and I wrote the book, we learned really quickly, you can boil the ocean on just about any topic. And I would think you would probably have some of the same challenges with an ethics award. How did you get into figuring out what really defined an ethical leader that not only should have an award, but serve as an example, especially the inaugural winner?
So this award really follows our McGowan Fellows Program, which is a program that we support 10 second-year MBA students, and we put them through an immersive experiential leadership development program in addition to their MBA curriculum every year. So we have a new cohort of 10 every year. And that program really focuses on 6 ethical leadership qualities that we, the McGowan Fund, really look to our benefactor, William G. McGowan, who is the CEO of MCI Communications, and said, okay, let's boil this down, as you say, to what every leader should have, right? So it's accountability, it's character and integrity, it's courage, it's empathy, resiliency, and self-awareness. So if someone has these instilled in them, and it's something that is not taught in MBA programs to the degree that we do today.
I agree.
And so if someone really walks away with a leadership philosophy that is embedding all of those principles into how they want to show up as a leader and to doing the right thing. They have a North Star. Yeah. So when it's time to make hard decisions, and there are always hard decisions, right? Every day. Yep. And so, but when it's time to make those decisions, if they have a framework, a North Star on values-based decision-making that's advancing not only their corporation, this isn't about, we don't want corporations to win, we absolutely do, of course. Yeah. But also that it can be done with a lens to benefiting society. So, and society, I define as your employees, families, communities. It is. Right? Society, the environment. So, and things like DEI and equity, all of these things are affected by whether a leader is ethical or not ethical, and not using values-based decision-making in everything they do.
How in the heck do you evaluate that? Because, I've been in HR for, well, you know what? We're not going to talk about years of experience. We're going to let that one go by the wayside. Quite a while. And there's so many great people that want to do great things that are in the human capital function. Mm-hmm. So how did you must have had a heck of a pool of people to select from. That must have been like gnashing your teeth trying to get down to who was going to win.
For the Ethical Leader of the Year award?
Yes.
Well, so they had to be nominated. Okay. We didn't go out and find them ourselves. People nominated them. And based on our criteria, the six principles that I just mentioned, people reached out and said, hey, I want to nominate this person, and here's why. And so they had to do writing about the individual. And yes, there were several that we had to go through, but we do an awful lot of vetting, and you really can't hide things today.
No,
if something happened 10 years ago, does it matter today? Even if maybe today they're known as being a better leader, but it was something that was important to us that they have imbued these principles of ethical leadership for a decade. So you heard me say this morning that Charles Lowry had really shown his ethical leadership for decades. Mm-hmm. So we talk to people. We talk to the person who nominated them. We have interacted with people in their companies, and you can hear in people's voices. When you're talking to them, you can hear what people think of their leaders.
This episode is sponsored by Talent War Group, a management consulting and executive search firm. We help you attract, retain, and develop your top talent because we know that the most valuable asset within your organization is your talent. With services like leadership development, talent acquisition and HR consulting, executive search, executive coaching, and keynote speeches, we work with you to create talent solutions to your most pressing business problems. You can get started by finding us at talentwargroup.com and let us help you develop your next generation of leaders. Also, if you like what we're doing here at the podcast, please leave a review as it helps us support and continue this podcast. It helps us support people who are really dedicated to improving their business skills and excelling above all else.
Had the opportunity to have you on and I heard about this award, there's those moments, and sometimes I'm pretty flippant on this show. I'm like, when we started out, we had ketchup in a glass bottle. It's like, why didn't it come in a squeeze bottle?
Good question.
But you kind of look at an ethics award and you think this should have been foundational to MBA programs, to almost any graduate program a long time ago. Is there a part of you that just kind of thinks, I'm glad we finally got it going because this has been needed for so long?
Absolutely. I mean, our program is in its 13th year.
Wow.
And
Congrats.
Thank you. It's really a tremendous program. We have wonderful people who come through it, all, truly, I can say all, with the notion of supporting corporations and society alongside one another. So, yes, over the 13 years, have I seen a lot of change in MBA programs in really incorporating more ethical leadership development, and I'm not talking about something, when people are coming to school for a week. I'm not talking about a seminar. I'm talking about how do they address the incorporation of ethics in everything that they do and say. And so I have not seen a lot of change. So we thought it was important just because it's such a critical time in our country, in society in general, that said, okay, we really have to take this on. As an organization, do we believe that this is really important? And of course, one of my North Stars is, what would Bill McGowan want us to do with this? Because he was known to be this very ethical leader. And so it became very clear of, yes, we do need to elevate this conversation. Now, just in the last year, we've seen one of our schools really developing a program that's somewhat similar to our McGowan Fellows Program about ethical leadership. So I think as leaders come forward, and if you remember, 2 years ago, you heard Jamie Dimon, with the Business Roundtable, saying we have to change the definition of a corporation. It cannot just be about shareholder value, but we really need to talk about stakeholder value. And then how do we define who those stakeholders are? So it became very clear that the time was so right with all the turmoil and the pain that we've had in our country to really address this and to elevate the narrative across this country on the need for ethical leadership.
Yeah, it is in the age of social media. I can't think of a better topic than to be talking about ethics and value. And, Mike and I in the Talent War Group, we do a lot of consulting with companies. I do a lot of executive coaching. And one of the things that I really, really like about the approach is that you're starting it when they're in school. Because there's so many people that I work with and that I coach, and it feels to me personally as a coach, and this isn't knocking anybody I coach, but it's like pushing a rock up a hill, because once they're down the path and they don't have that foundation of ethics, it's so much hard to make them a more effective leader. Now, when people go through the program, go through the school, and have that foundation of ethics, do you get the chance to follow up and see how that goes with people that have gone through those programs?
Oh, we do. That have gone through our own program, yes, absolutely, we do. So this is steeped in an evaluation, actually. So everything that the McGowan Fund does, we're trying to evaluate to really assess and understand our impact in the world. We're stewards of the money that we have. And so how do we use that in a way to benefit society? That's an overarching theme. So when they come in, our students come in, 10 each year, and they're doing kind of a baseline assessment. How do you rate yourself in the area of integrity, character and integrity, of self-awareness? So we're able to capture that data, and this is just, and by the way, they've already done like 5 essays for us talking about, tell me sometime you failed as a leader. How did it make you feel? What did you do about it? And how did you change your leadership practice? That's one of the essay questions before they're ever even selected.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a good question, right?
I love that question. And I teach people actually how to interview. And I said, one of the questions that I ask to get at kind of values, character, integrity is, give me a time where you had to tell your boss or your peers or others some very, very bad news that you knew would possibly affect your career in a negative way, or those around you. Walk me through how you thought through, what did you do, what did you say, how did you go through it? When you had to tell the truth, what happened? And the answers I get out of that, they run the gamut.
Yes, I'm sure. I'm sure they do. And you're adding in courage, not only character and integrity, but you're really bringing in that courage element, because it does sometimes take a lot of courage to do the right thing. Right?
So right now with this award, there's just one award, right? Do you see it expanding?
Oh, I'm not sure. I think it's too soon to say.
Well, it seems like such a great idea that automatically you're off and you've gotten it going. And like you say, it's been around, but you've now given the award. By the way, I just wanted to ask, for my curiosity, is it, they can come from a small, medium, any size company. It's just the nature of the person, correct?
Well, so right now we were trying to stay within the Fortune 500 companies. When we think about influence in this country, especially influencing MBA programs
Yeah.
to change their really their pedagogy, right? So believing not just curriculum, not just a class, but how they think about imbuing ethical leadership development, values-based decision-making within their programs. It's hard to change.
Yep.
My organization cannot change this within a university. We can be influential from what the students go back and say, and they do influence their schools. But the real influence comes from corporations who are hiring people, going and recruiting from their talent pool at these MBA programs to saying, hey, we really need to see more ethical leadership development from you.
You know, when I think of ethical leaders, to kind of change tracks a little bit, people come to the talent war group and they're like, hey, how do we hire better? How do we hire faster? We have the great resignation, the great regret. Mm-hmm. I'm like, look, I can teach you all of that. I can speed up your system. I can do a lot of things and take a lot of time out of your process, teach you how to sell yourself better. But that's going to take some time. But the one thing you can do is double down on leadership. And what I really like about this award, and as it gains traction and gains notoriety, is that, to me, you know, people never leave companies. They leave bad bosses. And more often than not, that's ethics. So we try to teach people to double down on that. So that topic of having ethical leaders, this has got to, I can't see it doing anything other than positively affecting people leaving companies in the Great Resignation. Was that a motivator behind some of this and getting that award out there for this Great Resignation? And
well, I think that's part of it, right? So I think that we started thinking about this prior to the Great Resignation starting to occur. And so, but that's part of the last 2 years and all we've learned from living in this pandemic. And the Great Resignation can be about leaving bad bosses. It can also be about, I just want to work at home from home, in my socks or something like that, or having other concerns about children and family and well-being and so forth. But I think that it does point to the fact that we have to be more cognizant. We have to have empathy. You know, all leaders, you have to be able to maintain your culture once it's been established. But establishing that culture of we do things the right way, and they're knowing that there are going to be difficult decisions, but doing it for the betterment of everyone within the organization, and then making that tough call and being very transparent about what you're doing and why, I think is one of the key factors in this that we think about a lot.
As I've said many times, with the post-pandemic, the pandemic, and the Great Resignation, it is the era of the CHRO. Your HR and your talent acquisition teams are the front line as you fight the war for talent. Like any essential component, they need to be fortified, trained, and supported. Talent War Group's Talent Acquisition and HR Consulting Development Service helps your organization learn to attract and retain top talent and help you gain an advantage against your competitors. Our current job market, like I said, is the Great Resignation. And now, the Great Attrition is what you're seeing, and many other names due to the record number of workers quitting their jobs. 52% of the employees are currently looking for a new job. So let us help you get it right, know what the best talent looks like, attract the best talent, and help your company thrive. The Talent War Group brings a unique set of skills to help you take your business to the next level. You can get started by finding us at talentwargroup.com and let us help you develop your next generation of leaders.
And I know we promised a short period of time here, but as you developed this award, do you get the opportunity to talk to a lot of these senior businesses, like a Jamie Dimon? Do you get to talk to a lot of leaders? Did you get a lot of outside input from senior leaders about this? How did that go, and when you were doing it, what learnings did you pull from it?
So you're talking about the nomination process? Yeah. So we did. When people are nominating their CEO, and it does have to be a CEO, at this
Oh,
point.
okay.
When people were nominating their CEO, and when I was communicating with them, it's like, well, what is special about them? And maybe it's just about how much they care for people. They care about their employees and the way that they address and embrace a culture of every person knowing that they care about them. So that was one distinction. Another one, and with Charlie Lowry, it was just like, oh my gosh, yes, Charlie Lowry insists on everyone making ethical decisions. So it's looking for and understanding how that ethical leadership really permeates every cell of an organization, from the C-suite down to, the person at the lowest rankings of the organization. Every person is important. And so really taking away how people address this, if they're thinking about it, given our work in poverty, that's something that resonates a lot with me.
Yeah.
So are you taking care of the people at the lowest rungs of the organization? How do they feel about you? What if you have to lay off 5,000 people? I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but there is a right way to do things to try to help them recover, right? Because a lot of times in that particular case, it's a matter of homelessness or stabilization.
Yeah, and Mike and I talked to a lot of leaders, and in our book we were talking about leadership. They think, okay, we're military. This leadership on the battlefield is different than leadership in the boardroom. And our argument is no, because as much as when I was in very difficult situations, I've got my brothers and sisters and their lives in my hand by the decisions I make. To your point, those leaders, they have families and extended families, and they could end up homeless. I mean, those are serious circumstances and that mindset. But since I know we're at about time, I'm going to leave the last word to you. Normally I ask a question, but this is, I don't even want to ask the question. I just would love to hear what's next, and I will give you one question. I'm sorry. The question is, if you could tell HR leaders, which is really a lot of what we get following the podcast, your best advice on making sure that people, and we call it a talent mindset, so now we're going to say ethical mindset, driving an ethical mindset through their companies, what advice would you give those HR practitioners to really drive home what is, I think, is the foundation of any leader?
Well, first of all, I give a lot of credit to our HR leaders, and the SHRM conference is just bringing out how truly hard they work for their corporations to make sure they are establishing the right culture. But I think I would say that, so often we're looking at traditional questions, interview questions about people's skills, their talents, and so forth. But I think asking those powerful questions about their ethical leadership, whether it's about how you have encountered something when you've made a horrible mistake. If you have failed someone, if your leadership has failed someone, how did it make you feel? How did you address it? And what did you do about it? Right? But really understanding, establishing the corporate values, which most have those today, and then putting those into action and incorporating those into the hiring platform to make sure that you're asking people coming into any leadership role very key questions about what their experience has been and what they are bringing to the company outside of just their skills, because skills can be taught.
Yes.
I believe that skills can be taught.
We have that right down there. Hire for character, train for skill.
Right? So we're on the same page here. They can be taught. But someone's character comes from within, and it can be developed. But if they have not had exposure to it, and the only thing that they have been through is, shareholder value, and we have to have profitability and so forth, how are you going to embed those corporate cultural ethical standards within someone? So I would say develop a robust set of questions that really draws out to the point where you have no question about someone's integrity.
I love it. I love it. A great way to end. I can't thank you enough. Congratulations.
Thank you.
On the inaugural award.
Thank you. It's just been so fun and such an honor.
it really makes me proud and feel good to be talking to leaders that are bringing such important things that I don't know, sometimes they did get overlooked. But this one, I love that topic immediately, and I love this award. So thank you so much for taking of your valuable time, and I hope you have a great conference.
Thank you, and thank you for all that you do in this same space.
Thanks.
And thank you for listening to the Talent War podcast, where we discuss all things talent, focusing on a talent mindset, the core belief that the only true competitive advantage you can hope to achieve and maintain is your talent. Join us for the next episode of the Talent War podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you heard, subscribe and please leave a review. Connect with me on Talent War Group's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram accounts and send your comments and inquiries to media@talentwargroup.com. The Talent War podcast is brought to you by the Talent War Group, management consulting and executive search firm. We work with you, bringing services like talent acquisition, leadership development, executive search, executive coaching, seminars, speaking engagements, all to create talent solutions for your most pressing business problems. To get started, visit us at www.talentwargroup.com.